Greetings, Facebook Live. Welcome to WKYC's Three-Point Play. I am Ben Axelrod. Joining me, as always, is Matt Fleur-Jancic. A busy day in sports in the Cleveland sports world. Matt, let's get to it. Let's start out in Los Angeles, a story you wrote for WKYC.com. We saw, 2 weeks ago, the first Philadelphia billboards go up, recruiting LeBron James to Philadelphia. Cleveland, of course, had a response with a couple of billboards of its own. And now Los Angeles, ahead of the Cavs' West Coast trip, which begins tonight when they take on the Denver Nuggets, have responded with Lakers fans recruiting the King. Yeah,
the opening salvos have been fired in this war. I'm calling it the billboard battle. You heard it right here first. You could use the hashtag if you want, but I think this is going to become a much more popular thing as the season goes on. LA has now joined the recruiting fold for LeBron. We all know about Philly and Cleveland's response to that. So it is going to be very interesting to see how this battle turns out. But we do know one thing. This is only the beginning, the tip of the iceberg. There are going to be plenty of other teams that think they have a shot at LeBron. They're going to try to jump on this bandwagon.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw billboards in Houston, San Antonio. We've already seen them in Philadelphia and Los Angeles. This is going to be a full-out recruitment from, it really started, last year during the finals up until free agency and when it begins in the start of July. But yeah, this is it's just kind of funny. I live downtown and I saw that big crown kind of mimicking, giving a middle finger to the city of Philadelphia. This is not your father's NBA free agency. We've been used to, reading the tea leaves, especially when it comes to LeBron. But these billboards just seem to have really upped the ante when it comes to fan recruitment.
Yeah, it is kind of fun. It's fun to have these back and forth with fan bases. We all know what Philadelphia is capable of, and we all know what the city of LA is capable of. And now we're starting to see Cleveland get into the mix, and it's really a good thing to see for Cleveland's perspective to get back in on this and to really go full force after LeBron, just like these other towns are. Bottom line is, no matter where he goes, LeBron is going to be met with a lot of love from his town that he goes to or stays in.
Yeah.
And a lot of angst when he comes in wearing an opposing jersey.
You mean you don't think when he sits down with Jim Gray this summer to announce where he's taking his talents to or where he's keeping his talents, when Jim Gray asks him what went behind the decision, LeBron, he's not going to say that it was a billboard?
Yeah, I think he even talked to this last week. He said, look, it's not a distraction. You'd think it is, but he's like, to be 33 years old, 15 years in the league, and people still want me to play for their team, this is pretty dope. Like, he's excited about it.
Yeah.
He's kind of enjoying the moment. LeBron is kind of like that. He's like a big kid. He likes the attention. He likes the discussion. He likes the healthy debate. But bottom line is, he knows where his bread is buttered in terms of being on the court, and wherever he goes, he's going to have that home on that 94 feet of hardwood.
There you see the Philly, hey Philly billboard that was it was down. It was up for 3 or 4 days. It was up all weekend. That was pretty jarring to see. I think also you look, obviously, Wild Eagle Saloon and the 9 sponsored it. I do think one thing about this is it's almost become an easy marketing strategy for companies.
Oh, sponsorship,
where they can essentially sponsor the Cavs or sponsor the Sixers or sponsor the Lakers without having to pay that premium. All they pretty much have to do is pay for a single billboard. It's become something where obviously, Cleveland fans love that. They love the publicity of it, and the companies love the publicity that they gain from it. And it's really, I think, more than anything, it's not even necessarily representative of a fan base, but more so businesses' willingness to attach their name to this cause.
There's definitely a marketing component to it. And when you mention LeBron or the Cavaliers, right now they are hot. They're about as hot as they could be in terms of marketing sports in Cleveland. And they see that as an opportunity to jump on board, and it's a simple one-time thing. You don't have to be committed to a full season advertising or a multi-year advertising deal. It's a one-shot thing, and there you go.
Yeah.
It really is kind of neat to see these companies start to bond together and to be like, hey, we're going to jump on this. This is a great opportunity for us to promote ourselves and get some fans at the same time. It's brilliant marketing strategy.
Yeah, especially because they know people like us are going to write about it.
Right, exactly. We're giving them free pub.
Probably made up the cost of that billboard for them. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them here on our Facebook page. Steven says he's not leaving, so people need to shut the heck up. So I guess on that note, we'll shut the heck up and move on to our second subject. The NFL Scouting Combine just came to an end on Monday, but we're still seeing the stories come out of last weekend in Indianapolis. And one that was particularly interesting when it came to the Cleveland Browns was, according to, I think it was Jeremy Fowler at ESPN, he said that the best story he heard in Indianapolis was that a group of ex-Browns coaches held a fired Browns coaches party one night at a restaurant in downtown Indianapolis. Adam Schefter had some more details on it. One was that Mike Pettin, the former Cleveland Browns head coach, who is now the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator, I think he was kind of the ringleader on this deal.
Not a huge surprise.
Yeah, and then two, it was at the aptly named Rock Bottom. I think it's a brewery there in downtown Indianapolis.
This was great. This was really a great story. It's funny. It's nice to sit back and laugh about, kind of the miserable years that we've had of football. But the bottom line is, these guys kind of embraced it. Look, they understand that their time in Cleveland was not how they wanted it, but they're kind of enjoying it, and they're building a rapport among themselves. It's kind of like what John Gruden did a number of years ago. Well, he was still at ESPN, the Fired Football Coaches of America Association, the FFCA. This kind of what this reminded me of is the Fired Browns Coaches Association, like
right.
the FBCA. It was really neat to see these guys come together over what was a miserable bonding experience and to kind of laugh and joke about it. Yeah. There were some adult beverages consumed. There were a few cigars smoked if Mike Pettin was involved in this. And those war stories that were told at that bar could fill an encyclopedia of things we cannot report on, but had to be damn entertaining to listen to.
Well, that's Tyler. If you could go back to that list, our producer Tyler, if you could go back to that list that I compiled on the story.
So when it first came out, we weren't sure who was there until Adam Schefter at least said that Mike Pettin was there. I didn't even think about Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick, for all we know, could have been at the Fire Browns coaches
He could have planned it too.
But look at this list that I came up with of conceivable attendees. Romeo Crennel, who is still the defensive coordinator with the Houston Texans. Pat Shurmur, who is now the head coach of the New York Giants. Mike Pettin, obviously. Norv Turner, the former offensive coordinator, who is now the Carolina Panthers offensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan wasn't necessarily fired, but PowerPointed his way out of Berea, now the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. Brian Daboll, who is now the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator. John DeFilippo, now the Minnesota Vikings offensive coordinator, and Terry Robisky, who is now the Buffalo Bills wide receivers coach. That's just former head coaches and coordinators, not even thinking of all the position coaches that could have attended.
They had to rent out the whole brewery. I mean,
they said it was a small gathering, to be fair.
But truthfully, though, with a small gathering of former Browns coaches could still be a group of 50.
Right.
I mean,
relative.
When you take the amount of coaches that they've had and they've replaced over the last 15 years, specifically even the last 7 years alone, I mean, that list is long. And it is very, very impressive, the who's who that have come through here. Rob Chudzinski could have been on that list, too. I tell you what, one guy I would really like to share stories with or listen to the stories of, I want to sit down with Kyle Shanahan with a couple of adult beverages in front of us, and I want to know about that PowerPoint presentation. I want to know some of the points on that thing. I want to see, what he had to say about Johnny Manziel. I want to hear what he had to say about missing out on Teddy Bridgewater and Derek Carr. I want to know the detail. I want to know the minutia of how that thing went and how quickly it unfolded and whose decision it was to make some of those moves. We all have our theories and our conspiracy theories. I want to know the guts of the situation. I don't want to know what really happened.
Well, it's funny listening to the Tomahawk Show podcast, Joe Thomas's podcast with Andrew Hawkins. A common theme in that podcast has been what a disaster it was for them to lose Kyle Shanahan after the 2014 season. And
I second that.
Since then, they are 4-44, so it's pretty easy to see. But
yeah, there you see Kyle Shanahan, the man who almost made Brian Hoyer a very rich man until the end of the 2014 season when everything kind of fell apart. But
had it not been for the drafting of Johnny,
yeah,
Brian is a very comfortably wealthy man.
Well, Johnny even said, he said when he appeared on the Tomahawk Show that he got the sense that Kyle never really wanted him there. So that kind of tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, I mean, when the OC is not behind you, that's bad. But when you don't take it very seriously and you get routed in your first ever start by a team who less than a month earlier your team demolished on national television, not many good things are going to come from that. It's just not going to end well.
Yeah, it's funny too. I mean, you look, the last time, up until they kept Hugh Jackson heading into 2018, the last time they had brought a head coach back for a third season was Romeo Crennel in 2008.
Yeah.
It's 2018.
I know. just think about that. I mean, nobody's gotten more than 2 years up until Hugh Jackson. And I think the overwhelming consensus among fans and media members alike was, wait a minute.
Right.
You let go of Rob Chudzinski, you let go of Mike Pettin, you let go of all these guys, and you're going to keep the guy that went 1-31 with 0-16 on his record?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on here?
Chelsea here actually has one of the best jokes about this I've heard all day. She says, I'd like to make the joke, did Jimmy Haslam foot the bill? But in actuality, he did.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
So that's where Jimmy Haslam's buyout money is going toward.
Money well spent by people who are no longer in the organization.
That's great. We've seen a lot of new look Browns, obviously, when it comes to the coaching staff. In a couple of years, we might see another version of the new look Browns. ESPN Cleveland today reporting that the Cleveland Browns are in the process of overhauling their uniforms. They can't do it officially until 2020. At least that's not. They can't debut them until 2020.
Right.
But typically, just from a design standpoint, it's typically a 2-year process. So ESPN Cleveland has reported this kind of before. I think Tony Grossi had a report that they were looking at white helmets potentially. It's not obviously there's not a lot of details about this. We don't know if it's going to be another dramatic overhaul or if it's going to be a return back to the old uniforms. But it's pretty clear that when it comes to the old adage, look good, play good, the Browns haven't done either, dating back to 2015.
No, that's 100% right. I was there when they debuted it. And what was weird was the picture that leaked before, like the weekend before the big debut happened, it was almost to a detail exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And when the leaked pictures came out, everybody's like, oh, I hope this isn't it. These don't look very good. Lo and behold, they were pretty much as accurate as could be. And I got to tell you, from a press standpoint, the white jerseys are a little difficult to deal with, but I still like those better than the brown.
Yeah.
The brown jerseys with the orange numbers reminds me, and all due respect to my former high school, my alma mater, who has the exact same color scheme that the Browns do. Orange on black or orange on brown never work out that well.
Yeah, it's one thing that's kind of annoyed me about their current uniform set is, I agree, the white looked better than the brown, although it seems, I was going through old pictures trying to find a picture for my story today, and last year I think they wore the white jerseys like
almost
11 or 12 times.
Yeah.
Like they only wore their white uniforms. And that was they never wore the orange ones, and that was supposed to be a big thing with this uniform scheme was we have all these different combinations of jerseys and pants and socks that we can wear. And then last year they just wore white on white for like 11 or 12 of the games.
Right.
If you're going to go to this, you see the uniforms up there. If you're going to go to this approach, you can see all the different combos there. At least take advantage of that. I like when they mix in the orange pants. I like when every once in a while they wear the orange jerseys. I know it's not a traditional look, but the jerseys in general aren't a traditional look.
Truthfully, of the three main jerseys, I like the orange the best.
Yeah.
It's
the easiest to read.
It is the easiest to read, and granted, Joe Thomas is right. They kind of do look like traffic cones when they do the orange on orange on orange. But the bottom line is, of the three, that's the nicest looking one.
Right.
The brown does nothing for me. The white we see way too often, and that kind of goes back to Mike Holmgren, too. When Mike Holmgren took over the team, he wanted to go back to basics like how the Browns used to be, and they wore white at home. Mm-hmm. The only time they wore brown was when they played in Florida in humidity. and other spots in around the country that are very humid throughout the entire year. They, I think, almost right to the point that they debuted those uniforms, they regretted them.
Yeah.
And they've been talking about it ever since. Dee Haslam said probably at least a year ago now that they are looking to, as soon as they possibly can, redesign again. And they're not going to stand pat in terms of what they do is going to be what they're going to do long term. They recognize that they made a mistake, and now they're trying to fix it.
Yeah, I like those uniforms right there, the 1986 uniform. I just think going back to it would almost be a blessing in disguise that it's made us reappreciate those old uniforms because
simplicity.
They had gotten pretty tired just in terms of we'd seen a lot of losing football in those uniforms. But to go to these that look like either an XFL or I do think they might look a little better if the team was better. Like it's actually easy to see how the uniforms could look a little cooler. But obviously the product on the field is a much bigger concern.
Well, no matter what they do with the uniforms going forward, those uniforms that they wore last year are always going to have the stench of 0-16.
Right.
And they're always going to be remembered as, those are the jerseys they wore when.
Yeah.
You have to cut bait with that. You have to move on from there. You can't continue to go in that direction. Like, honestly, what is the right answer? Who knows? But going back to the days of Clay Matthews, Bernie Kosar, Ozzie Newsome, not a bad way to go for this franchise.
Yeah, no, I agree.
These uniforms were hated, by the way.
Yeah, I remember the 1984. I look up a lot of old jerseys on eBay, and I came across some of these from 1984, and I had no idea what they were. I had never, but yeah, they had kind of tried to modernize them before.
For a second there, I thought Tyler pulled up the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Can you go to my Twitter real quick? I came up with 3 uniforms that I liked that they've worn that I would like to see them go back to this approach. And it's basically the jerseys from the early 2000s. But I did like when they incorporated the orange pants a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think on a Monday night against the Rams in 2003 or 2004, they wore orange pants with the brown uniforms. It's one of the few times they've ever done it.
Brown on orange looks great. Brown on brown does not look as good.
Yeah, go look at the picture. Scroll up to the pictures there on the side. Click on that. Yeah, that one. That one.
That's not a bad look.
Yeah,
I think that's Jamel White carrying the ball.
And then I think if you hit next, the white version. Yeah, Andre King, I think. In the white with the orange. And then I do like one more, mixing in the orange. I just think it's good. In today's NFL, one from a business standpoint, it makes sense. And to do it for once a game, you've already done it. It's not like you're sullying history at this point.
Right. And what was ironic is last year we talk about them wearing almost exclusively white. Okay, Nike had to design color rush uniforms for primetime appearances.
Right.
The Browns didn't have any.
Right.
So you didn't even get to see the color rush uniform.
Right.
You got to see a picture of it, and I'm sure they probably sold a couple of jerseys here and there, but you never got to see the real thing. If you have the alternate uniform, you might as well try to use it and make it look good. Put it out there, and honestly, of the 3, that's the best one.
Yeah, for having never worn the Color Rush uniform, which they've had it now for 2 years and still haven't worn it, because the one Thursday night game they were playing away and the Bengals were wearing dark uniforms, or the Ravens were wearing dark uniforms. You see it around the stadium more than you would expect for a jersey they've never worn. And I think, when I read an article about how people didn't like the uniforms and they're aware of that and how they might try to incorporate the Color Rush ones and more. Maybe we'll see that. I mean, that's not a bad compromise, but it'll be interesting. I guess, would you rather see them try to overhaul this thing again or just go back to basics?
Personally, I was a big fan of back to basics.
Yeah.
I didn't think they really needed to go as drastic as they did, but they felt like they wanted to go in a completely different direction. At that point, they had some influence from the Seattle Seahawks organization that were in pretty high-powered positions with the Browns, and they were put in charge of doing the uniform redesign because they were allegedly the brains behind the Seattle Seahawks redesign. When I look at the Seahawks, I think, wow, they look pretty sharp, and they play well.
Right.
So it's the perfect storm. They win a Super Bowl after their uniform change. They sell a bunch of jerseys. They look good doing it. The Browns, they change their jerseys. They get worse. They continue changing coaches. Their quarterback situation's a joke, and they go 1-31.
Right. Yeah.
End of discussion.
Yep, that it pretty much settles that. Yeah, I'm with you, though. I think there are ways you can modernize it without going drastic. You can mess with the piping. You can maybe add some shadow to the numbers. But, yeah, I mean, what they've done, both obviously on the field and the way they're dressing, it's just not working. So
You don't need to go full-on Arena League, XFL-type deals. You can do a simple redesign that's very basic, subtle, but still effective. But if they go back to basics, it's going to be another big transition.
Yeah,
because there's a long way to go.
And knowing what we know now about the 2014 to 2015 Browns and when these jerseys were, when they were brainstormed upon and when they were brought to fruition, maybe they didn't come from the best place. Maybe they didn't come with good intentions behind them.
They came with the intention to sell a brand new line of apparel to a fan base that had already spent millions on apparel. Yep. It was a marketing ploy, and it did not work like they planned. Now, you'll still see jerseys walking to the stadium every Sunday, as we do when we walk from here. You know, it's only about a mile and some change to First Energy Stadium, so we usually walk it. But when you walk to the games, you see a lot of jerseys that are new, but you see mostly them being of the custom variety.
Right.
You don't see a ton of quarterbacks. You don't see a ton of defensive linemen. You see a couple of Kaisers, a couple of Garretts, a few Manziels, but bottom line is most of them are custom.
Yep. And sometimes they're very creatively custom.
There was one at the parade that I'll never forget, and I took a picture of it, put it on Twitter, put it on Instagram, put it in our gallery. It was just creative. You had to look at it for a few seconds to figure out what it meant, because it was all one word. But it was God help us.
Yep.
And it was the most creative and most aptly put jersey, I might add. Tyler, did you have anything to do with that?
No, that was not mine. I did have, when I was a kid, I would do a couple things because I had a Tim if people can hear me, I'll step a little bit. Hi, everybody. When I was a kid, I had a Tim Couch jersey, and I would just put tape over the C. Make it. I think a lot of people did that. And then I had a Braylon Edwards jersey. I got it for Christmas the year after he caught 17 touchdowns. So I thought, oh, this is a great jersey to have. Well, he stunk it up the next year. So I remember I went to Christmas the next year after the Browns had gone like 4-12, and I put tape over Edwards and just wrote psych. Just good. Remember better times, I guess, when I wasn't even alive.
Yep.
In interest of full disclosure, I do have a couple of Browns jerseys hanging in my closet. One is Joshua Cribbs, because when I worked for the team, he was the guy that was on the team, and the other is Clay Matthews.
Yep. We'll have to do a different podcast just to go over all the jerseys I've been spurned by. I was driving home from running errands the other day, and I found myself behind a car that had a Browns license plate, and it just said, "We try." So I thought that was pretty good.
That's what we call a mic drop.
Peyton Hillis, beg for that one for Christmas.
That's going to do it for today's WKYC 3-Point Play. I'm Ben Axelrod. He's Matt Florjancic. He's producer Tyler. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with you tomorrow breaking down all the latest in Cleveland sports.